Hi, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you how to do a hammered metal wire pendant, which you can attach beads off of, you can make brooches, you can make pendants. I'm going to be making a pendant today. I've started out by already doing one of my pieces of my pendant, and I'm using 14 gauge copper wire. It's nice because it hammers out and flattens out really, really nicely. I'm going to be using a hammering block, a hammer, and a mallet, and the mallet side that I'm going to be using is one that is flush here and flat. And the 14 gauge, like I said, is nice because it hammers out, but the copper is a nice soft metal that is easy to bend. I'm going to be using my round nose pliers to do so, and then I'm going to attach two pieces of my 14 hammered wire with this half round 20 gauge wire. To do my forms, you can draw on a piece of paper if you want to do something that's very ornate or do letters or shapes, but I'm just going to do something very free form. I've cut 4 inches of my copper wire, and I'm going to take my round nose pliers, hold the wire where I can see it hanging out there, but I can't really feel it at the end, and I'm just going to turn my pliers and make a loop and round out my wire. I'm going to continue to round it out. And the 14 gauge, if you have enough hand strength, you can kind of bend it with your hands. I'm just going to bend it into a form. Just playing and bending and playing and bending. Take the other end here. I always like to turn my end so that way it's not going to poke you at all. Turn the end over as well. And the 14 gauge doesn't like to be bent too stiffly by the pliers. And I'm going to bend again. The less you can use the pliers, the better. You get less of those plier marks. You can use nylon jaw pliers or needle nose, flat nose to kind of bend it as well. I'm going to keep this form, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer out this, and I'm going to attach it to my form that is already hammered to get kind of a bigger pendant. A lot of times I'll hammer and then I start piecing together to figure out exactly how I want it to look. So I've already hammered out the one. The key to hammering is 1, don't hit your fingers. 2, you want to get the hammer side that's nice and flat towards the hammering block. The more that you go on an angle, the more that you're actually going to mark up your copper. A lot of times people want that hammered look, and that's what you're making the hammered wire pendant for. But the nicer that you do it, the flatter, you're still going to get that shine, but you won't get the gouges in it. So you take your pliers. I usually put my finger on top of my hammer in order to stabilize it, and I'm going to hammer down. I hammer on one side, hammer on the other side, and really flatten it out. So I'm going to continue to hammer. I've gone ahead and finished flattening out that second piece of wire, and then what I'm doing is piecing the pieces of wire together. Play with it. You can turn them to see exactly how you want the pendant to look, but you want to make sure that you do have a top of your pendant at the top here, because that's going to attach to your bail or whatever you're going to be using to string it. You can also do the pendant sideways and attach chain or another necklace onto it, but I'm going to do this pendant up and down, and I have this loop here that I'm going to attach a bail to or make my own bail. You want to make sure that 2, 3, however many pieces of wire that you do, that it's going to touch in multiple places on the pieces of wire. This I have touching here once, twice, and 3 times. That's where I'm going to do what I call bindings. The bindings are going to be done with the half round wire, and I'm going to use the flat side down against my wire, the rounded side towards the top. I have just a small piece of this wire, about 3 inches, that I've cut, and what I'm going to do is attach the wires, the 2 pieces of wire together using the half round. I tuck this underneath my pieces, and then I'm going to pick it up. Again, flat side is down against the wire. And the flat side, a key to that is the flat side is usually shinier. I'm going to bend the wire around. Again, this is 20 half round, but you can also use 24 round wire. And I'm going to go through my pendants and create a couple of these bindings. And what that's going to do is keep my wires together. I always like to end my wires towards the back of the pendant. So when I make a cut here, I'm going to cut my wire at the back. So that way you don't see the start or finish of that binding. I'm using my needle nose pliers just to bring it a little tighter, to bend that to the back and to pick up that piece there and bring that to the back as well. So here I have one of my bindings done, and I'm going to continue to do this and to bind the other pieces. of my wire. So you can see this shifted a little bit. I kind of have to put it back in place and move those bindings and get ready to continue with my other bindings. Now that I'm done my bindings, if I want to, I can go back onto my hammering block and I can go back to the steel block and I can hammer down those bindings if I want. I don't have to. As you can see, you don't see any of the ends of the bindings, but if I turn the pendant over, you're going to see the ends of those bindings. Again, you can use any type of wire to connect it. It's just going to become part of the design the more that you wrap, the more that you coil. I use with a thicker wire at least 2 bindings around to really hold it in place. If you're using a thinner 24, I would suggest 3 or 4 coils. And then you can go ahead and flatten out that wire if you prefer. You don't need to, it's up to you. But that's going to give you that hammered wire pendant look. And I can go ahead with 24 gauge wire and decorate this and add beads or have things hang down. So you can enjoy, add some flair to it and make the design your own.